Hey there, my name is Pravus, and welcome to Clanfolk. This is a brand new indie colony simulator that just entered early access as of today. And on face value, it might seem like a medieval Rimworld clone. I mean, it certainly does take a lot of inspiration from games like Rimworld and Dwarf Fortress. There's a similar aesthetic, a similar UI, some of the game mechanics are quite similar, etc. But if you spend a bit of time diving into this game, you might find it has a lot more depth than you were expecting, and in different ways that make it a separate, distinct, and most importantly, a fun game on its own right. Though I will say again, given that it is in early access, there's a lot more that needs to be added into the game, some features that I think are missing, or some rebalancing that needs to be done, but given some time, I think this game actually has some good potential. I was looking at it over the weekend with some of my top tier patrons in a private stream, and we were all very pleasantly surprised. This game had a lot more to show than we were expecting, so it's something to keep an eye on. The theme for this game is based in the Scottish Highlands in the 1300s. We will be taking a brand new clan and establishing a new home. And one fun fact about Clanfolk, this game is generational, which means your starting characters will get old and eventually die. But before they do, you'd like to see them have children who get married off to other clans, have grandbabies, and they all grow up and continue on the legacy. Pretty cool idea for a game. Let's go ahead and jump into a new game here. Now, when you start up a new world, you do have some points that you can spend to improve certain features, like extra lakes, or more mountains and forests and wildlife. This is what I'm going to go for, actually, so I think this could work out for me. Let's go ahead and build up a new world. And here we are. Okay, from here, let's go ahead and build up our clan. There are several different surnames, different clans that you can choose from. Let's say we want to play with, I don't know, the Ross clan. Success nourishes hope. All right, sounds fine. There are several different starts you can choose from. We have a fresh start, which is the basic scenario. You have a brand new family, and you just kind of build everything up from scratch. You also have the shepherd, which is a family trying their hand at managing some sheep. I don't know how difficult that is, but it says that it is harder. And then finally, an orphan scenario where their parents are gone, but a bunch of children band together at taking a few chickens or whatever else they can carry, and they're going to try to build up their home that way. Very difficult way to play the game. We're going to go for a fresh start because this is the basic start. Now from here, you can see our family tree. We have John and Elizabeth. We have Rachel and Peter, Bess, Alexander, and a baby, Marjorie. Yes, afraid of the dark baby, Marjorie. Okay. Every pawn does have some of their own particular traits, skills that they are especially good at. They like doing certain things, don't like doing others, and they have some traits. For example, they are a hard worker and a pessimist, or maybe a tireless heavy sleeper. Wait. Those two go together. That's going to be interesting. When Alexander does sleep, he is like the dead. You can't wake him up. Anyway, so this is going to be our starting family, and then we do have a starting inventory as well, basically just some meat and some starting chickens. Let's go ahead and begin. Now, there are a handful of things you're going to need to do at the beginning of the game, certain basic needs that will need to be met. I happen to know you can just go under Objects and find some of these basic needs right here. And the first things I want to do is set up, let's say, a couple of wash zones over here so that people can bathe in the local lake, and then also a couple of drinking zones so that people can quench their thirst. Yes, I know, we are bathing in the same water we drink from, but it's a pretty large lake, hopefully, I think. Maybe? So it should be probably kind of fine. We'll also set down some sleeping zones over here because I know that people will need to sleep somewhere, and we'll build a proper house later, but for now, this is the best that I can do. All right, with these basic needs met, the next thing we need to do is go to jobs and gather up some basic resources. I'm thinking some of the copious numbers of stones over here. Also, some branches from the trees could be good. And I do see a handful of berries, which could make for some early game food. So I'd like to go ahead and gather all of this. Now, this is going to take a little while for all of our pawns to sort of hop around and start working on jobs. But you can already see some of the Rimworld style of influence in this game as these little pawns kind of hop around and do their jobs. But there are some extra animations. I mean, you know, drinking some water or bathing over here and stuff, you know, hopping around a little bit. It looks pretty good. And there's actually a few other features I'm looking forward to showing you that I'm like, this is an attention to detail I would not have expected. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Now, as we've gathered up some of the branches and stones, and eventually we'll gather up some food, we get access to some stockpiles. I would like to go ahead and place down a small food stockpile there, plus an ingredient stockpile, i.e. building materials, right over here. This should be completely fine. Now that we've also gathered up branches and stones, I can go to Objects, and we have a new crafting menu over here, with which I can place a simple work zone, where people are going to take those branches and those stones, and they are going to be able to turn them into useful tools, which will unlock different types of jobs. So right now somebody is gathering all those resources, bringing them over, constructing it, and now we have this zone open. By building the work zone, we have unlocked the stone sickle. I can queue one of these up for the cost of a few branches and some stones and a little bit of time, and someone will be able to craft a tool, which we will use to then harvest reeds, grasses, hay, oats, a whole bunch of other stuff that's useful for building materials and for food and for taking care of livestock. We're going to need all of those in the end. By the way, it's kind of hard to see with the tree here, but Marjorie the baby wanted to be picked up, so Rachel has come over here and is now soothing the child, because that is something that you would do in a good little family atmosphere in the Scottish Highlands. The sickle is built, which means we've unlocked a new job, the ability to clear some grass, or in this case, maybe a handful of reeds. Let's go ahead and assign those as some starting jobs, because I know I'm going to need that in order to get some hay that I can use to construct a lot of other stuff. Now, every one of these pawns do have some of their own certain needs. You can see over here, so their mood, how much energy they've got. We can see their age, their health, and so on. Also, cleanliness, how much fun they've had, and so on. All this is here. Pretty cool information, but the most important thing you'll need to pay attention to is the skills tree right over here. Now, this looks a little bit like Rimworld. You can see all the different skills that everyone has to their name. You can also see from here whether they earn experience twice as fast, or whether they love a job or hate a job, and so on. We can rearrange these job queues and priorities kind of like you would in a game like Rimworld, but instead of a numbering system, you just reorder these different jobs. So for example, let's say Alexander, I don't ever want you doing doctoring. You're not skilled at it, you hate it. I'm going to say this is the bottom priority for you. But you are just a simple child who's not particularly good at anything. So I'm going to go ahead and make what little things you are good at your top priorities. Namely, getting experience in lumber, hauling, and then gathering. And then since you are a simple child, I'm going to let you do some cleaning while the adults do a lot of the hard work. But eventually, I do want you to gain some experience in different skills to make you a bit more useful. You can see other things over here. For example, by clicking on a skill, it highlights the skill type for everybody so you can see where it fits in this reordering queue, and it actually makes it a little bit easier to figure out how you want to reorder this to make sure you have at least one person dedicated to, let's say, crafting. I really want to have a good dedicated crafter. John, please be my best crafter. Make that one of your top priorities. Also, you really love gathering. Okay, that'd be great, but don't ever do mining, etc., etc. You can also click on the skills over here on the left, and this is going to help highlight things. At the beginning of the game, I mostly want to have a really good gatherer, a good harvester, a good builder, and a good crafter and a good cook. Those are the most important skills for me at the very beginning of the game. So let me sort through this a little bit to make sure I've got all my bases covered. This should do for at least a moment. Okay, so we've reprioritized everything. You can also click on every individual task and increase the priority of a specific task, or simply click on this button to make it the top priority, right? Something that someone does next. So if you ever find yourself desperately looking to complete a specific task, that's the first thing you would probably want to do. Another thing I want to point out is you'll notice we're unlocking things as we go. If we take a look under ideas, we can see a discovery tree and how this all works together. So these are some of the basic tasks and the basic resources that result. By getting some of these resources together, we are discovering ways to use them. For example, I've just discovered how to make a dry stone fence, and that is by gathering up enough stones, I've figured out something new. Or by gathering any food items, we have learned how we can stockpile it, etc. We already noticed that as we gathered up both branches and stones, we figured out how to make a stone sickle. And this is how it's supposed to go, right? You're gathering up resources, you're taking advantage of every new discovery, and this kind of leads to the next set of discoveries. For example, if I want to get an eel trap, I probably need to learn how to get some straw, which means I need to build this thresher and then learn how to convert the hay into straw so I can make an eel trap, right? And then it will unlock. Until you've unlocked these things, they're not going to be options for you as far as jobs or objects, etc. And there are a lot of things that you can discover. So it's kind of a natural progression, a very logical, like technological discovery path for a lot of your pawns. It's actually pretty cool. So, pretty much every time you have a new access to a new resource, go ahead and start gathering it. See if you can figure out a cool way to do something with it. You might just be surprised and discover that this leads to the next great thing. For example, under farming, let's go ahead and place down that thresher. We know that's something we're gonna need, and I know that this is gonna lead to a new form of food generation. So we'll go ahead and make that a thing. Now, somebody should be prioritizing this, but there we go. Okay, Rachel is prioritizing it. Now we're gonna be building this. We've also figured out how to plant down reeds of our own, because I guess we found some seeds, but there's my eel trap. So over here in the thresher, we can take some of the hay we've been gathering from local grasses, and we can start converting that into some straw. With the straw that I've already got from reeds, though, we can go to Objects, under Hunting, and place down an eel trap. Yes, there are disgusting Scottish eels in this lake over here, and we want to eat them. So we'll go ahead and use some of that straw and build one of these up. There we go, we have an eel trap. Now here's something you need to be aware of in this game. Overfishing is a possibility. If you are getting too many fish out of the lake, it is possible that you depopulate this enough that it never recovers and suddenly you've lost a crucial food source. So it's important not to get too greedy when it comes to something like fishing. To that extent, the game has actually made this a little bit easier to manage. I'm going to click on this twice, for example, and say we want to do 2 jobs of baiting and catching eels, 5 eels, up to a total of 10. But let's suppose that I don't want to do more than this. I want to make sure that someone comes by and does this twice every day. We can do that by clicking on the eels and then hitting wait until tomorrow, and then clicking this button to rebuild this queue. So basically we gather up the eels, then it triggers the wait until tomorrow, and then when tomorrow comes, this all resets and we gather up eels twice, and then we leave it. It's a good way of getting a little bit of food, but not overdoing it, especially at a time when I actually can't eat enough food to justify overfishing this area. So that's kind of cool. If you don't want to use this whole waiting until tomorrow queue thing though, you can just go ahead and click on this, and what it does is trigger an auto supply. So if you ever fall below a specific number, it automatically is going to say, hey, let's go ahead and gather up those resources. Now, something else I know we're going to need is a cooking fire, because as we get these raw eels, I need a way to cook it. Otherwise, it's just gonna be just really disgusting. God, can you imagine just a raw, slimy eel? Ugh! Let's go to food, and we've unlocked the cooking fire, which predictably does take a lot of stones and branches. One thing you need to be very aware of in this game, some of structures, like a fireplace, can throw sparks. So if you are placing a fireplace in an area next to, let's say, a bunch of flammable hay, it is entirely possible you set your entire base on fire, and that wouldn't be very good for any of us, now would it? So to that extent, they've given the ability to place, like a stockpile zone, a blocker zone, which basically says, in this area right here, never drop an item. I don't care what it is, just never place one of these over here. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. So now, ideally, nothing can ever catch on fire. Let's go ahead and queue up some cooking eels jobs. Actually, we'll go ahead and just set this to be like, I don't know, how about 20 for now? If we ever find ourselves with some raw eels, let's just go ahead and cook that stuff up and auto-queue the jobs. I'm also going to queue up a new tool called a hoe. We've also unlocked the twine and the stone axe as a result as well. See, all of this ends up being pretty helpful stuff. We need all these things. The hoe is going to give us some new jobs, including gathering clay from the local shoreline. So we can go ahead and do this, and you guessed it, more clay is going to unlock a new type of resource which we can use for a whole bunch of new technology. And yes, I did unlock the poop hole just now. That is important. Now that we have a hoe, we can dig a hole for people to poop in. Kind of important that people have the ability to do that, or they're gonna get a little bit, let's say, unpleasant. So I'm gonna place down a couple little poop holes over here. Take the hoe, dig a hole, and take a poop in it. Now that nighttime is starting to fall, people are going to be going into free time mode over here, so they can go ahead and start socializing, get a little bit of recreation in, kind of fill up their fun meter, rest for a little while. All that seems reasonable. Oh yes, we're taking the baby over for a little bit of a poop, some potty training, you know, good old-fashioned Scottish potty training, that is a thing. They're going to rest for a little bit, and then in the morning, they'll get right back to work. In the meantime, I'm unlocking a whole load of stuff as we go. I've played through the tutorial, so I have a rough idea what I want to do. So I'm kind of breezing through some of this. I can't show everything in this video. There's kind of a little bit too much. But you kind of get the idea with what's going on. The next thing I want to do is start planning out some housing for people, and also we're going to want to get some storage for a lot of our ingredients, because if the rain ever comes by, a lot of this stuff is going to decompose kind of quickly. Now here's a little attention to detail I want to show off real quick. You see this fireplace? Do you notice that the shadows are actually coming off of every item that could be sticking up above the ground here a little bit, based around the light source? These are just like little things. It's like, really? You thought of that in this game? Wow, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and start clearing out space for a nice home right over here. So now that we've gathered up some logs from trees and stuff, I don't mind placing down some log walls. We do have a few other options. Wattle walls, for example, would be quite cheap. Hay walls are an option. We could also make something out of clay, but I'm going to go ahead and do something out of logs. I think that's going to be fine. So we'll place something kind of like this. It doesn't need to be a very big home. Just, you know, reasonably sized. Something like this is probably a little overly ambitious to start, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And with this placed, let's go ahead and also look to getting a roof. A stone roof is going to take a long time. It's kind of hard to find a lot of these large rocks. Like, we'd have to go mine the mountain for a while, and I know I have a lot now, but it's not going to be enough. So let's go ahead and place down a simple hay roof. But for this, I'm going to need a lot of straw, which means we need to go over to this thresher and make sure we queue up plenty more of these jobs. Okay, we have managed to roof off our home. It's very dark in there right now, though, and people do tend to like light. So let's go to our buildings and other and place in a couple of little windows. And yeah, kind of like with the lighting features you had for the fireplace, lighting features exist from the outside into buildings and stuff as well, which is kind of cool. I like that. I've also placed down a little wattle building over here because we're going to turn this into some storage. So as we get up some more hay, let's go ahead and place a roof over this as well, just to place our perishable items in here and make sure they're protected from the rain. Now, you might be inclined to think that this tiny little barn isn't going to be large enough to hold a lot of my goods, and you would be right, except one of the fun default buildings for this game, as opposed to something like Rimworld, is a whole load of different specialized storage buildings, so you can fit, for example, 6 tools on one rack over here instead of taking up 6 spaces on the ground. So things can be a lot more space efficient if you're willing to spend some time building up, let's say, some branch piles or places to store your clay and your stone and your meat and your seeds and your flute. Whatever else it's gonna be, I don't know. You might find yourself occasionally in a situation where people aren't working jobs you might expect. For example, I had a thresher over here and I'm like, I have the hay, why is no one making the straw that I need? Answer: it's not super easy to see, but the graphics are there. It's raining right now. And certain jobs don't work in the rain. For example, cooking. And if it rains for several days and you find yourself in a situation where you are, shall we say, unable to cook your food, you're going to be in a bad spot. So you may want to start looking into some other options like moving certain things indoors. That's what I've done over here with the thresher. I just moved it indoors, at least temporarily, by using this button right here to move it, so that we can continue working on some of these jobs, because that's what's holding me up right now. Farming is also something you can work on in this game, as you might expect. So I've had people till down the fields using the soil mechanic right over here. Now we can plant down some crops, grass, reeds, or oats, eventually some berry bushes or trees if I want. I think for now, a little bit of grass could make sense. We have an easy source of harvesting grass, but also then some oats for some extra food, and then maybe a few berry bushes along over here, just to give us a little bit of diversity. I am also building out a couple of kilns in addition to some charcoal kilns, and what this does is allow me to take logs, or I guess branches and stuff, and turn them into charcoal. And then with that charcoal plus some clay, I can make bricks or tiles or even jugs to carry some water around. 1, to make sure that if the lake freezes over, we're not gonna, die of thirst. And 2, so we can go around with the jug and water the soil, as you're seeing right here. I'm already trying to place down some brick tile floors here. And the reason I'm doing that mainly is for beautification. Dirt floors and gravel floors are pretty good for helping to get a little bit of speed bonus for people cheaply. Hence why I have some of these paths here so that people can get to their jobs a smidge faster. Stone floors sound great, and they're even attractive. However, those big rocks, as I was saying, can be hard to come by unless you're willing to dig deep into the mountain. So an easier way to do things is to place down these tile floors, get a little bit of beautification, and a 43% movement speed bonus, especially in the indoors. That's pretty darn good for me. Now, speaking of mining into the mountain, we have done a little bit of that, and you can see that there is a resource that can be found in here, and specifically I'm thinking of iron. I think gold is a thing as well. Haven't found that before, but there you go. With some iron, what I could do is then go to Objects, Crafting, and place down a bloomery. And with a bloomery, we would be able to start smelting up some ingots of iron, and I think that is something we should probably invest in. Would you look at that? The chickens are literally coming home to roost. Yeah, I kind of forget about these little guys, but off they go. So now they're going into kind of their own little pen, in which I place a small barn with some animal beds and little animal holes they can get through, and a storage place for a lot of these seeds, because this will keep these guys nice and happy and fed for a while. I am going to turn this branch gates off, same with the barn door and stuff, so that only humans can go through, and now chickens should be trapped into one small little spot over here. Perfect. Now, they do lay eggs, and they can fertilize those eggs and have more chickens. I don't know how much really it's worth the investment in these guys, but in theory, this turns into a reliable food source. Now, something interesting that's a part of this game is kind of functioning like, I don't know, Scottish innkeepers, kind of. There's a vacancy sign thing, which tells travelers that there's food and warm beds available. So we should probably place one of these down. I mean, I decided to go ahead and do something over here with a small little house like so. So I guess, yeah, a small little vacancy option, you know, could be kind of good. Let's let people know that we are open for guests. There's some new stuff that's also popped up I haven't seen yet. A job board for attracting job seekers. Wait, can we like hire people to come and work the farm for me and stuff? Oh, that'd be kind of interesting. There's also a trading post to attract traders, at which point I'm sure we can sell some excess goods and for a bit of coin and then buy something. So, okay. I don't know why we need to place down a flag in order to attract said traders, but I guess what we're saying is we are open for business, question mark? So, cool. Let's go ahead and place these. Oh, hello. A traveler has arrived. Child. Well, hello. I would like to rent a bed to you. You are bored and are acceptable with low light conditions, I guess. Anything else weird about you? Yeah, you should be fine. I'm gonna rent you a bed. Do I get to choose what bed you go to? Because these are the ones I want to set specifically for travelers only? Is that a thing? Hang on, wait. Guests allowed. Yes, that's what I want to do. Why is a straw curtain allowed for animals? Whatever, anyway. Okay, yes, so this is supposed to be a guest bed. We'll turn on the fireplace. Warmth is something you'll have to consider in this game. Nope, Elizabeth is going where I don't want her to go. Okay. Workers allowed, family only, family only, family only. Guests allowed. This is where I want to say family only. How do I say guests only so Elizabeth doesn't stay over here with child? I have no idea. Anyway, warmth is something you'll need to consider because the seasons will change over time. So right now we are in the middle of summer, and summer is only going to last for another day or two. I don't remember if it's 10 or 12 days. Then we're going to move on to fall. And of course, things are going to get a lot colder. As we get into winter, the lakes are going to start freezing up, and you're going to wish that you had some sort of heat. That's where the stone fireplaces come into play. You simply keep these things up and running, make sure you have a vent between your rooms so that the heat is able to get around, and boom, problem shall be solved. Why is the baby up wandering right now? This seems extremely unsafe. Looks like child is now leaving and paid me 24 coins. And who is this Elizabeth person arriving? Oh, hang on, we have people at the trading post. Oh, hang on. All right, how does this work? So we can buy stone, or we could sell off this stuff, like the roosters I barely know how to take care of. I'll be honest, I don't feel like I want to sell any of this stuff, so you feel kind of unimportant to me. Who are you? I can hire Maurice. These are the skills he has. He's a really good cleaner. Everything else is kind of meh, and I have to pay him 46 gold or whatever per day. Fast metabolism, tireless, and a pessimist. I guess I'll ask you to leave. I don't really need to hire you. Same with you, Francis. I don't really see any point in keeping you around, but interesting. Okay. So yeah, periodically we could get some extra help. Now, I don't think that these people, like, stay in your town permanently. It's just hired help, but that's interesting. Now, Elizabeth, on the other hand, I'm happy to sell a whole bunch of bricks and tiles and stuff. This is pretty easy for me to make over again if I need to, and that just got me a lot of extra coins. So maybe I could have hired a Maurice after that. I don't know. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Now, something interesting just happened. If we take a look at clans over here, we have discovered the other clans that are on the general vicinity. The Bruce, Mackenzie, Douglas, and McDougal families. McDougal? Ouch. Those are all in the nearby surrounding areas. We could actually try to do some various different trade missions with them to get some extra reputation, and I'm pretty sure at some point we might even be able to intermarry between the clans. Not something I'm going to worry about in this particular video, but it gives you some rough idea what you could accomplish. In the meantime, I have also unlocked the smithy, which now unlocks a whole bunch of new tools, taking iron ingots, which I have been smelting at our bloomery, plus some planks, which you can use a timbery over here to make planks out of logs. You get some bark as a byproduct as well. So we'll go ahead and start manufacturing a handful more of these planks, because I'm betting we're going to need them. And it might be worth trying to get the better, longer-lasting tools that also have a better work productivity. So probably we would like to get stuff like, let's say, at least one sickle, at least one iron pick, an iron hoe or two, and then an iron axe to start. There's also nails, which is necessary for advanced construction. We can go ahead and start planning out some of these, see if they unlock anything new and exciting. Also, milking buckets. If we had any cows, that could actually be kind of cool. So I don't think we need to be auto-building any more of these stone tools. Seems like that would be a waste of time. Though we'll need to keep this working area around because, I mean, if we ever run out of valuable things like iron, we're going to want to be able to make something out of cheap materials like stone and branches. Okay, I've got the nails, which means we've unlocked things like a wooden floor. We also have unlocked better tile roofs. Okay. Kitchens that produce advanced meals and do not throw sparks. Oh, okay. So clay, planks, iron, and nails. Do all of that, and you've got a better area for cooking. Not necessarily for heating. Well, no, I take that back. Warmth of 30. That seems to be about as good as a stone fireplace. So is there much point of having said stone fireplace? I don't know. Maybe the kitchen could be used as our heating element instead. We also have a workbench as a new thing we can work on. Work much faster than at the work zone. Oh, well, I'm sold. Okay, in that case, let's get rid of this nonsense, and we'll place down a workbench. New baby! A baby chicken! Actually, a couple of them. Cool, we're breeding chickens, ladies and gentlemen. It's interesting reading some of the modifiers on some of these travelers. For example, I saw just a moment ago, public poop shame was like an actual mood influencer. Apparently, people really don't like having to use the poop holes. I guess I can't say that I really blame them too much. We have other options now. For example, we do actually have access to toilets now that I have planks and nails. I could probably create an outhouse, and that would make everyone a lot happier. Probably not a half-bad idea. Might end up doing something kind of along those lines. But I do think that we're kind of running out of time for this episode. If we take a look at the ideas, you can see that I made a fair bit of progress, but we're still maybe just over halfway in terms of unlocks, let alone a lot of the other major mechanics, such as having children grow up and intermarry to other clans and so on. Now, I don't really know how the aging mechanic works in this game. I mean, if we take a look at, let's say, Marjorie the baby, we can see her status right here, and she is about halfway through her baby phase. It's going up by 1 stat per second out of 36,000. Which is, 600 minutes? So 10 hours. You have to play the game for 10 hours for a newborn baby to become a young child that actually can do some jobs. I don't know if that's going to be a little bit too slow for some people to be interested, because obviously it's a bit of a long investment. You're kind of stuck with mostly your existing family, and you want things to kind of progress and kind of grow so you have more output possible. You know, you want to have a larger family so you can do more, is what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, if people age too fast, well, then you might find that some of your best pawns aren't going to be around for as long because they get old and then they die, and that would be sad because babies have 0 stats and you have to train them. Grown adults are pretty talented at what they do, so losing them would hurt. I don't know. This is something I think the developer is going to have to think about with a balancing standpoint, and just trying to find that perfect balance between, you know, realistic gameplay and also just kind of keeping people engaged and moving them forward at all times. Because if there's anything I don't want to do, it's sit on my hands for 5 hours and wait for my family to grow, if that makes any sense. But I'm really enjoying this game so far. I'm finding it surprisingly in-depth. It's got a lot more meat to it than I was expecting from an early access title. And I think this game's pretty fun to play, kind of in its existing state. I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to go, and if it is going to be getting better over the next few months or a couple of years. If you guys like what you see and you'd like to learn more about Clanfolk, then you can find a link in the description down below. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. If so, then I would ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.